Hey, welcome back. Welcome back to the Fuel Her Awesome show. I'm Jess, and I'm so glad you are here because today we are talking about something that I imagine you're already aware of, but you haven't been able to connect the dots and make it make sense. I just posted this story on Instagram about how I have sleep problems during my luteal phase, and I was talking through some of the ways I've mitigated that insomnia during perimenopause. And I had someone message me and said, "Oh my gosh, I never connected those dots. Like I knew I was having sleep issues here or there, but I never recognized that it was in alignment with my cycle." And so these are some of the things that I think happen and we notice and we know, but we don't connect the dots. So today I'm going to be your dot connector. And I want to connect the dots on why things that used to work don't work anymore. And, my husband and I were just having this conversation because if you follow the show, for me personally, and you might be different, but I personally like to go on vacation and have a good time. Like I am not trying to hit my protein targets. I'll eat in ways that make me have enough energy for what we're going to do. But when I go on my family vacations, you better believe I'm getting all the desserts with my kids. If I'm with my side of the family, I'm eating all my mom's stuff. If I'm with my husband's side of the family, we're eating all the delicious homemade Mexican food. I mean, I believe in showing up and being there fully, and that includes food. That is in alignment with my personal values. Now, you might be different, but for me and my husband, that is how we operate. And what's always happened when we go on vacations or seasons where we're not in our routine is we come back and we're like, oh, all right, we're going to get back into our routine, which we talked about in our first episode of this Real Reset series. And it would take like a few days for us to kind of go, oh, okay, there we are again. I think of like, there I am again. I've found myself. But as we've gotten older and in the past few years, we were like, man, it does not take a couple days. It takes like 2 weeks. And so some of these things that used to work just don't work the way they do now. And I think so often, if we don't understand what's happening, we can think, oh my gosh, I can't do this. Like I am failing this, when really it's just we are in a different season and we need a different tool. So I am pumped to connect some of these dots for you today. Welcome to the Fuel Her Awesome show. So the connection between our gut health and our mental resilience is absolutely amazing. Can we just talk about this trend that is happening everywhere? Okay, so I want to be clear in this reset series that we're doing. I absolutely believe in resets, but I think we have to do them in ways that serve us and set us up for the long haul. But one of the pieces in a productive, successful reset is making sure we understand the season that we're in. So I think of this kind of like a garden. If you've ever been a gardener before, you know the care that has to go into this. So there's like getting the soil right, there's the weather changes, and what works one spring might not work the next because the freeze might be at a different time. So I think of managing our metabolism much like that. And I would equate the weather to our hormones and the soil to our gut health and our nutrition. And the reality is, those things are constantly shifting and require evaluation and adjustment. So, for today, I want to talk about the weather, the hormones that are unpredictable and changing, because I think so many of us are feeling that. If you're in like the motherhood years, the early motherhood years, or maybe you're starting to think about having a baby. Maybe you're not having kids, but you're in that age bracket and work is really, really stressful. What happens in this season is we have a spike and it changes in our cortisol levels. Now, if you've probably heard of cortisol, there's a lot of talk about getting cortisol down. And the reason being is because it does have an impact on how our body metabolizes fuel. So one of the things it does is it tells our body we are in danger. And when we're in a chronic state of stress and that cortisol is chronically higher than our body is used to it being, the body feels that and goes, we got to protect ourselves. And one of the ways it does that is it's more likely to hold body fat around your abdomen. So I share that because, don't panic if you're like, oh, my cortisol's high. So now you're telling me that's why my stomach's getting wider. Okay. In part, yes. But what's important to understand is like that's why when you used to do things, 10 years ago, when you didn't have these cortisol spikes, that's why it worked so well. And now you're like, I'm doing the same thing and it's not working. That in part could be contributing to why. It's like if there was a late freeze and all of a sudden all your fruit had like those little buds and it was frozen. And then later on in the spring, you're like, why do I have no fruit on my fruit trees? It was that late freeze that completely changed what was happening. So cortisol does this and it has a huge impact. And I cannot tell you how many times I have had clients and personally experienced this where I have people doing something and they're in a really stressful season. And then when that season shifts, suddenly those tools that they're doing start to work. I just met with a woman who we had worked together for years and she was doing everything we talked about, but she was in a season where she was taking care of a parent and that was causing lack of sleep, high stress, caregiving, whether it's babies or moms and dads, it's a lot on our body. And what was so cool was that once that season passed, she was able to still do the tools and it completely changed how our body responds. So I'm sharing this with you because again, it's not a matter of controlling our cortisol, because I think we have to be careful with that. Sometimes we can't control it. Sometimes, we have to take care of our parents, or sometimes the babies won't sleep. I think it's a matter of having grace and understanding that sometimes the tools don't have the same impact and effect because of things beyond our control. And we have to let what we're doing in this season be enough. Now, the other hormones that come in here and change the weather are estrogen and progesterone. So these are the two major players in the female cycle. When estrogen is moving like it normally does, it can actually be really awesome. It can bump our metabolism. It can make us like just more confident. I think of it like the diva hormone. Like she is the lead singer and she's like not afraid of the stage. This is the part of you that makes your hair grow long, your skin glow, and the confidence that comes with that. So in the years after having a baby, or after you're starting to go through perimenopause, or maybe you've even gone through menopause, that estrogen starts to be a lot lower than it was in the past. And so with that comes a decrease in metabolism. So here again, we have a situation where you're like, gosh, I used to, just cut some of these things and I would drop X amount of weight. Now I do it and it's like nothing happens. Nothing is changing. Part of that could be in part because of your estrogen. I know this is why I am seeing that change when I come back from vacation and my pants are a little tighter than I like them to be. It's no longer just a couple days that I have until I'm feeling back to my normal self. It actually takes a couple of weeks. And a part of that is because my estrogen is starting to decline. This whole perimenopause thing is like it's happening. But I think as we understand it, we can start to go, oh, it's not really like I'm not broken. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just in a different season. The other one is progesterone. So I think of progesterone, she's like the drummer of the band. I have no musical talent. I really wish I did. But so I just like to compare everything to drummers and musicians, because this is how I live out that life that I'm not going to get to on this side of heaven. So I think of progesterone like the drummer, like she just keeps the pace and the rhythm. And what happens in, again, post-baby, perimenopause, and menopausal years, she starts to not be as present. And one of the biggest impacts of her absence is our body starts to miss out on the rhythms that it's used to, in particular, sleep. This one is really difficult because if you don't sleep, obviously you're a little bit more stressed, cortisol is a little bit higher, and then now we've got all of it, right? We've got lower metabolism, higher cortisol, which means maybe more body fat coming on, and now we're not sleeping. This is why what you used to do no longer works, and why we need some different tools on board. And I will tell you, the number one tool that you need in this process is grace, is understanding that you have no deadline here, that you have the rest of your life to get this figured. And yet every day you show up and do the best you can to take care of your body. That is enough. That is enough. But it may need to look a little bit different than it did in previous seasons. So for me in this season, it does look very different. And In my 20s and 30s, I loved intuitive eating. I was a very free spirit there. But as I've come into my 40s, things have shifted and I bring a level of intentionality that I just didn't have in previous years. I have more attention to fiber. I have more attention to protein. I have very dialed in attention to my gut health because these things have a huge impact on how I weather those hormone changes. So for today and this part of our reset warm up, what I'm hoping you take away is this. Just because what you used to do doesn't work anymore doesn't mean it's broken. It just means you might be in a different season and need to reevaluate how you're approaching these situations. I think when we can come into these with curiosity, what it does is it sets us up to learn about our body. And this is where biofeedback comes in, right? Instead of going like, okay, I used to do XYZ and I would get this result, it puts us in this place where we have to start thinking, okay, if XYZ doesn't give me this result that I want, what if I try ABC? What does my body say about that? And we collect that data. And then we start to build a new foundation. And what's really beautiful about this transition and this different mindset is that it sets you up to listen to your body, to live in your body. And every year I get older, the more important I think it is to value what my body has to say over social media, that news article, what I used to believe. I have to live in tune and in presence with what my body is telling me today. Now, if you're someone who's like, I love this, Jess, but I don't even know when I'm hungry. Like I don't even know when my cycle is. I don't track my cycle. I am so excited you're here because this is the stuff we're talking about in the Real Reset on September 2nd. Guys, I'm talking about these tools to help reconnect you to your body and connect these dots because I truly believe no matter what season you're in, babies, post babies, crazy work schedules, perimenopause, menopause, any of those seasons that you are in, there are ways to tune in, listen, and trust your body. And I think when we miss that, we miss an element of life that allows us to be present. And there's nothing more than I want for every single one of you listening than that to be present in your own body. Because I think being present and awake and aware mind is a mind that can engage and enjoy life. And ultimately, that is what empowered eating is for, is to feel comfortable in our body so that we can engage and get the most out of life. Because I don't know about you, life is pretty cool. Like there are endless opportunities. I mean, you could like pick up and live out of a camper van for a year and take your kids on road school. This is a thing. I know this. My best friend did this. And you could sell everything, move to another country and immerse your kids in another culture. Again, I know this because my bestie has done this. You could decide that after years of resisting putting your kids in organized sports because you didn't want it to run your calendar, you could decide to let it do that. And both you and your husband start coaching your kids' sports. And your days are suddenly filled from like 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. I know this because this is what my husband and I are doing right now. See, these are the things that they require a level of engagement and energy. And honestly, we can't do that without taking care of the very vessel that gets us there. And that's what we're here to do. All right. So for today, I want you to start thinking, okay, just because like if I'm frustrated that something's not working that used to work, instead of just getting mad and letting that be the end of the story and blaming myself, I want you to start to get curious. What else could I try? Who else could I reach out to? How could I learn more? How can I re-engage and connect with my body and that my body's biofeedback? It's a great road to go down. I can't wait to hear about it. We will be talking more about this on September 2nd in that Real Reset Masterclass. Until then, I will see you next week. Have a beautiful day. Cheers and happy eating.